The Sun and Wayward Stars by ThBiButterfly. Chapter 13. Holding Up the Line. Sirius dragged him out of the Quidditch pitch after lunch, insisting fresh air would fix him right up. He begrudgingly admitted that it helped. Regulus zipped around the rings and revelled in the breeze through his hair. The air was always more comforting than the ground. Up here, he allowed his thoughts to meander freely without repercussions. It was a reprieve from the constant reminders of his duties and expectations surrounding him. Long after Sirius wandered off to find Potter, Regulus remained aloft, content on entertaining him with a few practice drills to keep his skills sharp. Regulus darted around the pitch. Just as he considered landing, a snitch appeared near his broom. Watching the tiny golden orb dance around fitfully, Regulus tipped his head to the side with interest. He remained still, eyes tracing the movements of the snitch intently. When it drifted within reach, his hand whipped out and snatched it from the sky. He studied the snitch for a moment, then looked around. It took him off 10 seconds and a full sweep of the ground to spot a smug grin and the spectated face it resided on. Regulus sighed heavily, balled the snitch up in his hand, and hurled it at Potter. Clearly, Potter wasn't expecting that reaction. He was too busy admiring Regulus's flying to notice at first, barely ducking the projectile at the last second and letting it out a startled snout as he dove. When he grabbed the snitch from the ground, he huffed and glared up at Regulus. Arching an eyebrow, Regulus levelled his best unimpressed look at him. He leaned forward, gripping the broom tightly before shooting through the air. Embracing the freedom of the flight, he soared high up in the air and then rocketed down to the ground. Potter watched him approach with a wary frown, but remained in place. He crossed his arms over his chest and lifted his chin defiantly. When Regulus drew close enough, Potter's arm snapped back as he hurled the snitch at him. Regulus was prepared for this movement, fully expecting retaliation. He snatched the snitch out of the air with one hand and swatted Potter's head as he passed with the other. It was immature and antagonistic, but incredibly satisfying. If he could humble the bloke even a little, it was worth doing. "Watch yourself, Potter," he taunted, flying in low circles just out of reach. "It's dangerous to stand on a Quidditch pitch." "It's my Quidditch pitch, you twat," he retorted, annoyance written all over his face. Potter dripped up and battered at his broom. Regulus smirked. "Then you should know better, prat." "Get down here. Piss off. Don't force me to come up there after you. Wouldn't dream of it. Get down. Make me." With that, Regulus shot up in the sky. He heard the choked noise that escaped Potter and the sound of his summoned broom zipping towards him. By the time Potter caught and mounted his broom, Regulus was well ahead of him, grinning to himself. He began a series of complicated moves. Having played against the Gryffindors plenty often, Regulus knew Potter was an excellent flyer, but hardly a fast one. As a chaser, Potter was expected to focus on dodging instead of long-term speed. He was meant to navigate the muddled middle of the action and catch and inanimate the quaffle. As seeker, Regulus was far superior in the open air with both speed and evasive maneuvers. As Potter pulled up just short of crashing into one of the goals in an attempt to follow him, he threw a hand out in frustration. "Oh, fuck off, Black!" "Jealous?" Regulus taunted, flying past him and slapping the end of his broom. "You're just too slow, Potter." He nearly rolled off his broom, gripping it tight between his thighs as he spun him upside down. Amused, Regulus flew underneath him and looked up. "You're doing it wrong." Flipping him off with one hand, Potter struggled to right his broom. Regulus snorted a laugh and continued his wild and erratic flying. For the next 15 minutes, Potter chased after him in futility, shouting half-hearted threats. When Sirius returned, with Peter and Remus in tow, Regulus was growing tired of the game. He evaded Potter twice more and then rocketed towards the ground, gracefully landing in front of his brother. He dismounted and stepped aside. As he expected, Potter barreled after him with full speed, narrowly missing... I'm sorry, everybody. Narrowly missing Sirius as he crash-landed. "Prongs, for fuck's sake!" Remus shouted, grabbing Sirius's arm and pulling him out of the way mere moments before Potter hit the ground. I can just see this for me, and it's just so funny. Groaning, Potter dropped off his broom and sprawled into the grass. He kicked the broom away and pointed at Regulus. "You are an asshole." "I tried to warn you," Sirius reminded him, leaning his head casually against Remus's shoulder. Regulus noted that Remus hasn't yet released him. Peter wandered over and grinned down at him. What did he do now?" "Outclassed him on a broom that isn't even his, I reckon," Sirius suggested, lips twitching in amusement. "He's a seeker, you twit. Fastest player on the team." Chuckling, Peter shook his head. Aren't you the Gryffindor captain? Shouldn't you know that already?" "I'm plenty fast. My broom is still acting up," Potter defended, leaning up against his elbow. He swatted at Peter's legs. "Of course I bloody well know that, but you thought he'd let you catch him?" Remus guessed, arching an eyebrow skeptically. "That was stupid." Potter released an exasperated breath. "No, I just am an arrogant brat who thinks he's Godric's gift to Quidditch," Regulus finished for him, rolling his eyes. He turned towards Sirius. "How long until the party starts?" "About 30 minutes, Sirius answered, nodding towards the house. "Guests will be arriving soon." Regulus sighed. "All right, I suppose I'll be in the lab then. Keep myself busy." Sirius frowned. "You don't have to hide. Stay with us. We're only joining for dinner and then sneaking some fire whiskey up to the room after." He shook his head. "Too risky. Someone could tell Mother they saw me here." "I'll join you then," Remus offered, finally dropping Sirius's arm and clasping his hands together. "I'm not one for stuffy parties either." "Absolutely not," Sirius refused, stepping between them. "You two need supervision." Regulus chuckled. "Jealousy isn't a good look on you, Sirius." Gasping dramatically, Sirius' hand flew to his chest. "I am trying to protect you, Reggie. You precious bean. Remus has quite a reputation as a sexual defiant, and I'd hate to see you sullied by it." He winked at Remus before turning to scowl at Regulus. "Since when?" Peter demanded, snorting dirtily. "You're the only one with a reputation. You snogged half the tower." Sirius waved him off dismissively. "My point still stands. Mooney should stay with us." Pressing his lips together to fight back a smirk, Remus wiggled his eyebrows at Regulus. "They think they can keep us apart. Foolish, really." "Like a moth to a flame, we're drawn to each other," Regulus teased, a coy grin spreading across his lips. Remus ran the tip of his tongue along the edge of his teeth. Poetic too. Enticing." "Oi, stop that," Sirius demanded, waving his hand erratically between them. "No flirting." Potter hauled himself upright and scowled. "We know it's fake. Just give up already." Remus sighed. "No can do. I'm already invested." What does that mean? You're invested in Reggie?" Sirius demanded, his face screwed up in frustration. "Are you saying you actually fancy him?" The last words faded out to a whisper as his brother furrowed his brows deeply. "I didn't say that," Remus refuted calmly, crossing his arms over his chest. His expression was entirely too unbothered and slightly amused. Peter tipped his head to the side. "You didn't deny it either." His eyes flicked to Regulus as a fleeting grin flashed momentarily. Clearly, he was in on it. Regulus presumed Remus's amusement was caused by the mixture of emotions displayed so plainly on his brother's face. Confusion was the heavy contender, but there was also a battle at play between disappointment and hope. Sirius couldn't decide which he preferred, therefore was unable to express the emotion that matched. The cycle of blinking, frowning, and biting his lip continued unabated as he attempted to process things. "So, which is it?" Potter asked, pushing up to his feet, his own expression just as conflicted, caught somewhere between relief and suspicion. "Do you fancy him, or not?" Remus shrugged as a playful smile lit his lips. "I haven't decided yet. Until I do, I intend to enjoy a bit of harmless flirting with a very fit bloke. Can you honestly blame me for it?" He aimed a pointed look at both of them. "No, I suppose I can't," Sirius admitted reluctantly, wrapping his arms around his middle. It was a defensive gesture, surprising to Regulus. He'd expected anger, or at least indignation, not defeated acceptance. Interesting reaction. He glanced up at Remus in time to see his smile fade in response. This was backfiring spectacularly in real time. Regulus cleared his throat. "Look, you lot enjoy dinner, and I'll eat in my room. Afterwards, I'll join you for a bit, alright?" "Fine, whatever you want," Sirius agreed, drawing his gaze to the ground. Remus glanced between the two of them and sighed. "Let's give them a minute, yeah?" He guided Potter and Peter back towards the house. While Peter began an enthusiastic conversation about the sort of treats they'd find inside, Potter snuck several glances over his shoulder. His eyes flickered between Regulus and Sirius curiously. "What's wrong?" Regulus asked finally, stepping towards to prod Sirius' shoulder. "I've never seen you concede so quickly before." "He has a fucking point," Sirius groused, gesturing vaguely at Remus's retreating back. "There's nothing initially inappropriate about Remus flirting with you or you with him. You're both adults, and it's not like I can claim either of you isn't good enough for the other. That would be pretty fucking hypocritical now, wouldn't it?" Nodding slowly, Regulus lifted his eyebrows. "Correct. However, I'm sensing a severe." Sirius spun around on his heel and dropped to the ground. He folded his legs underneath him, planted his elbows on his thighs, and rested his chin on his hands. Avoiding Regulus's gaze, his brother stared off into the distance instead. No, Sophie, just wishful thinking on my part, that's all," he said quietly. After standing over him for several silent moments, Regulus sank to the ground in front of him in resignation. Apparently, this conversation was only appropriate at canine level. He lifted his knees and wrapped his arms around them. "Alright, let's hear it then. What were you wishing for, Sirius?" "I can't tell you." Sirius huffed, side-eyeing him. "Why not? You can tell me anything," Regulus argued, shifting his foot to nudge Sirius's knee. "I already told you. I won't give away any of your secrets." Shaking his head, Sirius sighed. "It's not that. It wouldn't be fair to you or to Remus. If you two really do fancy each other, then so be it. That's the end of it. I don't get to insert my wishes into the middle of things." He scoffed at himself. "I don't even know how I feel about it anyway. It's all a bit confusing." Regulus linked his fingers together as he studied his brother. There was sorrow in his eyes that he hadn't seen for a very long time. It didn't belong there anymore, and Regulus would be damned if he allowed it to return on his account. He hummed thoughtfully to himself, trying to find a way to ease out of his scenario without blatantly calling Remus a liar. Finally he shrugged. "You know I love you, right?" "I do," Sirius agreed, his eyes finally meeting Regulus's. "Even though you're usually a prick about it." Regulus smirked. "Well, prepare yourself. I'm about to do it again." His eyes narrowing, Sirius searched Regulus's face intently. "Meaning?" If you actually fancy him, Sirius, I won't pursue it, Regulus replied, projecting as earnest an expression he could muster. But I do request a favor in return. You do that. Just do let me try, Sirius checked, blinking rapidly. Regulus pointed at him. If you actually fancy him, I want to hear you admit it first. Is that the favor? Of course not. It's the requisite stipulation for me to step back, Regulus explained, tapping his fingers against his leg. The favor is compensation. Regulus' eyes flitted skyward as he considered the offer. When attention returned to Regulus, he leaned forward. What's the favor? To be determined at a future time, Regulus replied readily. He didn't actually have anything specific in mind, but having his brother owing him one was satisfying enough. So I'm to agree to this proposition without knowing how it will be used against me in the future? Sirius asked, suspicion playing across his features. Regulus lifted his hands in surrender. It won't be anything that hurts you or your friends. All right then, but you have to help me sort it out first, Sirius insisted, scooting a bit closer to Regulus. I've never fancied a bloke before, but Remus is special. Do you find him attractive? Physically, I mean, Regulus prompted, resting his chin on his arm. Sirius chewed on the inside of his cheek. Well, yes, but I think most people do. He's gorgeous. Nodding slowly, Regulus waited to see if he would elaborate, but he didn't. Regulus sighed. Do you want to snog him, get him naked, suck him off, what? Subtlety never worked with Sirius. Eyes widening, comically large, Sirius's face flushed bright red. Regulus Arcturus Black, I'm not telling you that. Prude, Regulus retorted, amused by his brother's furious blush. If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then I think it's safe to say that you fancy him. Sirius, just like that. It's that easy to decide if you fancy someone, Sirius checked, chewing hard on his bottom lip. I've never really thought about it. If the girl pretty, then I would try to snog her. Why is it more complicated with blokes? Regulus snorted with a laugh. It's not complicated. You're just a twat. Now, which one is the yes? Piss off! Say it then. You fancy Remus Lupin. Regulus goaded, a smug grin on his face. If you don't want me to date him, then you have to say it. Regulus released an exasperated breath. Yeah, all right. I fancy Remus Lupin. Good. Now go tell him that. What? I can't just walk up to one of my best friends and tell him I fancy him. Are you mental? Sirius refuted, shaking his head. Regulus rolled his eyes. Sirius, for Merlin's sake, grow some bollocks. I don't even care if you tell him or snog him senseless, but you'd better make your feelings known quickly, or I will. You just said, I am not allowing a fit bloke like Remus to wander around single if both of us are lusting after him. That's just a travesty, really, Regulus retorted, glaring at him. Make a move, or get out of the way. You're holding up the line. Sirius gaped at him. Bloody hell, Reggie. What? I'm tired of watching you stare at him with a lovesick expression on your face while he tries to figure out what it means. Regulus huffed, kicking Sirius in the shin. Go on, make his holiday a good one, you prat. Hello, I hope you like this episode. I really liked it. I really love these kinds of interactions between Sirius and Regulus. It's just always so fucking funny. I love them. Also, Sirius finally admitting his feelings. Took him some time, but we're getting somewhere. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have had a nice day and will have a nice day, depending on which time zone you're in, I suppose. The link in the description for if you want to read ahead or give a comment to the chapters, or just give kudos to the author because they deserve all the love they can get. They made something amazing. And also check their other fics out because they have just written some amazing fan fictions. And not only on Jegulus, but also others. Anyway, have a very nice day. And I am going to shut up now.